Good morning, everyone. Yes, Bob, I've got the children out the back, and I've got them on the rat wheel to make sure that the internet works today. Yeah, it was a bit of a shocker yesterday, but that's the way it rolls sometimes. Good to see all of you guys here this morning. Good morning and welcome to another Wealth Coffee Chat. James, Kevin, Bob, Joel, Alison, Ian. Good morning, mate. Ashley, Chris, Bob. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being in the house. We'll do a take two, eh? We'll do a take two on yesterday's Wealth Coffee Chat. But before we do that, do a few little intros. Brendan, good morning. Yeah, another shift, hey. $1 a day. Keeps the big wheel turning. Jason Witten's my name. If you didn't already know, it's down there. Most of you do. But if somebody's popping by saying hello, if you're new, let us know in the chat. Be great to hear where you're at, what you're up to, where you're from. Give us a shout out as we jump into this morning's Wealth Coffee Chat. We get together Monday to Fridays, usually around about 10 past 8, and we talk about the real estate world, specifically residential real estate. We try and make a little bit of sense of what's going on out there in the world of property investing. So if you're into real estate, property investing, if you're into building a portfolio, this is a cool place to hang out. Well, I'm a bit biased, I suppose, but I think it's all right. And we get to share a few things along the way that I've learned. You've learned, I've learned over the last 20 years, 22 plus years investing myself, coaching and helping other property investors over 18 as a professional as we roll along. Hey, morning, Stu. Good to see you. Luke in the house. Great to have you here too today, mate. Fantastic. Well, what is going on out there for many investors is the conversation about cash flow, interest rates, before tax cash flow, after tax cash flow, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a conversation that you need to get right in your own mind. Once you tuck it away, I've been doing a few things over the last couple of days about cash rates and interest rates and all these sorts of things. Once you tuck it away, I think it's important really to make sure we get the hang of things when it comes to our portfolio, and make sure we don't miss out on opportunities to build our portfolio, our property portfolio, over the next little bit. And I'm going to do something. Tomorrow. Actually, I'm going to do something tomorrow, and it's called equity lock or bank trap. So make sure you hang around for that one, team. Make sure you hang around for that. What that might look like, because there's a few conversations going on where many of us might be sitting on the sidelines because our cash flow, we're worried about our cash flow, etc. So I always like the idea of let's dive into things, let's dive into it and do some analysis, and then we'll talk about what that might look like. So that's the conversation today. Stick with me. I've got a few examples here when it comes to our cash flow calculator. I always like to use this. Morning, Royce. And if you want to download it, if you're in our mentoring program, you know where it is. It's in the Facebook group, or if you're in one of the other groups, it's there too. You can download it. It's usually in files, and there's a training thing that goes along with it. But let's jump into it. Let's have a chat today. Let's have a talk about our property and our cash flow. Actually, I will go back to the main for a second. Tell me right now in the chat, as a property investor, what number is the most important number? Okay, when it comes to real estate investing, and I'm going to do this. I think that's working. All right, tell me. Let's have a vote. Let's have a talk about this. What's the most important number? Is it the interest rate? What's the most important number? Is it the percentage rental? That's an R. Is it the rental yield, right? 3%, 4%. Luke's saying yield. Okay, nice, Luke. Is it the before tax cash flow? Is it the after tax cash flow? Is it the total return? Is it the cash on cash return? Cash flow after tax. Boom. So we got all these things, right? There's conversations that go on out there, and for whatever conversation is going on, often the conversation is appropriate to focus on the number. But really, as a long-term, folks, listen to me, as a long-term property investor, yep, all of them are good in a way, exactly, Joel, and that's, that's part of this, is like looking at each number is important at the right time. But if we were to say, for you as a property investor, a residential long-term buy and hold property investor, what's the number when it comes to our return? That is, and when we're talking about cash flow, what's the number that we need to understand the most? And for me, and hopefully for you, it's this one here. It's the after-tax cash flow, because that is the number which ultimately means can the property hold its own, pay for itself, and how does that work? Okay. Teresa's saying total return, number 5. And what does a total return mean, folks? Total return means your rental yield plus your cap growth. And I would do, for me, Teresa, and a lot of people have a different opinion on this, but I think it should be included, the actual tax back, because you get about 1% back, an extra yield, an extra percent on your yield for tax back. For me, that's how I measure rental as we go along. So, you have a fresh bird. How long? Yeah, a good question, Brendan. It's usually, Brendan, depending on where you're purchasing and what it is, it's the 12 to 18 months. The first 2 years, the property just has got to settle into its groove for sure. Yes, I mean, it depends, Brendan. It's a good question whether you've purchased a freestanding house, whether you've purchased a townhouse, whether you've purchased an apartment, whether you've purchased in a certain area that's existing, completely 100% infill, like nothing happening around it, etc. So usually for me, certainly when you're purchasing new, Brendan, you need to give that property 12 months to sort of settle into its groove, and get its mojo on. So, but good question. One that I might put another Wealth Coffee chat to do on. So great conversation. Good question. All right, let's go and have a look at how we're doing some things when it comes to real estate investing. Here's a property right now. I'm looking to help my young son buy an investment property, maybe his first home, then an investment property. Right now, so let's just use these numbers and have a look at what it might look like depending on a few factors, ladies and gents, when we have a look at some investing here, okay? And we're going to treat it as an investment property as we go along, and then we can muck around with some numbers, okay? Actually, this is one of the properties available to all of those who are in the mentoring program anyway. So it's a nice property up here in Queensland. Absolutely cracking. So, all right, let's have a look at this. I've got the market value here, 609, a purchase price 609, right? Now, we're going to use equity, but whether you put an equity deposit in there of 10%, if you go, all right, $60,000 or not, doesn't particularly change the total loan to value ratio down the bottom here, if you can see that, okay? So you can put equity there, and we're going to put equity there for the moment. There is some cash available. He's going to put in as well. So, morning, Graham. So, let's have a look at this. Some stamp duty, so lender's mortgage insurance. He might be able to qualify for the first home buyer lender's mortgage insurance thing, but let's just say this is you or me purchasing it as investment property. We've got some rates. We've got some insurance. We've got some letting fees. We've got an agent's fee to rent it out. I'm doing interest only 4.5%. At the moment, you can get anywhere between, late 3.8 to 4.5. And it's actually renting for more than this, but let's just say it's renting for $500 a week. And we put the depreciation in and an income in. Everyone cool with that? All right. And so what do we do now? We have a look at what's going on with this property. So let's have a look here. And we go, all right, well, we've got a rental yield of 4.3%. So right now, that's our gross rental yield. Remember, we talked about this on, where's my iPad? Here we go. So remember, we talked about, all right, what's the rental yield? Okay, what's the rental yield? Let's go back to that. All right, that's 4.3% gross and 3.2 net. Now, we're thinking, okay, well, what's, is that an important number? Not necessarily, but it's a good benchmark, okay? It doesn't mean particularly anything, let's face it, to do with your cash flow in and by itself, that number, okay? So, yeah, okay, gross yield. The idea, it'd be great if it's the higher the better. But what happens, tell me in the chat right now, if you wanted to get, a higher rental yield, what usually do you exchange to achieve a higher rental yield? Folks, put that in the chat. What do you often have to compromise on to get a higher rental yield? And there's this kind of balancing act with like this compromise. Chuck that in the chat for me right now. What do you compromise on to often get a higher rental yield when buying residential real estate? Yeah, usually it's capital growth. But it's attached to it's attached to location, Luke. So certainly, there you go, boom, Luke. Yep. So what happens, team, is you compromise for cash flow. We compromise often for cash flow location. So where we've got a good location next to great infrastructure, but we want better cash flow. So we go further away from good infrastructure. We buy in a less desirable area. And the other one is, boom, Luke said it here, the quality, and Sean was, alluding to it as well, the quality of the real estate. You might buy a brand new property, for in the area, or you might buy something that's 40 years old and a bit run down. So you're compromising on something. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not going to suit you. It's just that's what happens. And a lower purchase price usually too, Joel, means that you're further away. Yeah, you're further away for sure. So you compromise. So let's have a look at, what this looks like. Now, we come to our first number that we really want to pay attention to is our pre-tax cash flow, our before-tax cash flow. So on first glance, we look at, I like the pigeon pair. Absolutely, Alison. At first glance, this property looks a bit gnarly, right? So tell me right now, and this is kind of an analysis as at today, let's say, a negative pre-tax cash flow of $8,800, which means you have to tip in $170 a week pre-tax, is a bit gnarly. You're thinking, holy, like I thought this thing was meant to be, a bit more, a bit better than this, right? So the challenge is for many of us, this rationale right now is that over the last little bit, let's say, that's let's say, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. If we say these are the values, so property values have done that, right? But rents, so rents technically in some places did this, actually went down, right? And now there's some catch-up time to happen. But the price, the percentage, like the rental yield is calculated against the value, or actually it's the other way around. So the total annual rent divided by the value. I think it equals the rental yield. It could be the other way around, the value divided by the rent. I can't remember exactly, unless I do it on the calculator. I'm a bit dyslexic, folks, just so you know. So that's how it works. That's what comes out. And right now, we're sort of, on to 22, and there's some gaps in the ratio of value to yield. Now, that won't stay like that forever, because what's happening right now, folks, tell me, thanks, Andrew. Tell me right now, what's the pressures? What pressures right now are pushing that up? What pressures are pushing that up? Chuck that in the chat for me, okay, as we go, all right? What's happening? What's going on, right? We have massive undersupply, and so that's a push pressure, right? So undersupply. So we've got undersupply and low vacancy, the lowest in history. So low vacancy, and we've also got, which will be coming very soon, like and in places like Queensland, it's already going absolutely. Yep, boom. So there's a push. So Joel sort of said, okay, critical supply and interest rates. So interest rates are a pull. So the costs have gone up. So it's going to pull the rents up, and then the stuff which is going to push the rents up are things like low vacancy rates, more people, more population, higher population, and the undersupply issue. Okay, so everyone sort of, this gap will close. Like, listen to me right now. Like, the gap will close. Matter of fact, the gap will overshoot, ladies and gents. So let me get to the point of today's chat. Okay? This property is in Queensland, okay? And let's go back here and say, well, okay, even after tax, you can see down here, we get some tax back and we can claim it weekly, fortnightly, and monthly. That property is going to cost us out of our pocket a couple of bucks. Now, that's not the end of the world, by the way. I don't have a problem with, if you own an asset, you having to supplement it in the short term while you get things organized, or something's going to change. What is the one thing that I could reliably, with a high level of certainty, rely on in Southeast Queensland right now with this property that will happen in the next 12 to 18 months? Tell me right now, and I'm gonna jump over to my iPad again. Tell me what you think I can rely on in the next little bit, because check this out, right? Check this out. Check it out. Look at that. Look at the vacancy rate, team. Karen, I wouldn't be betting on capital growth right now, because I think capital growth will slow because of interest rates, okay? And that's pretty normal, Karen. But in some places, there will be some, rents to go up, up, up. Like, look at this, ladies and gents. It is the lowest vacancy we have ever seen in history. In history. There's nothing to rent, folks. 0.6. 0.6 in Brisbane. Check out Adelaide. 0.3. Like, it's ludicrous. Now, we won't be without a tenant, all right? At all. At all, I can tell you. And across the board, team, it is not going to get any better. It's not getting any better. If you hear any person saying, oh, there's some relief on the horizon. What a bunch of shit. Absolute rubbish. There's no supply, folks. There's nothing coming. And the government needs to get their, poo in one pile, to be honest. But anyway, so, yeah, well, yeah, the media doesn't want to try and make any sense, Andrew. They just want to get your attention. Yeah, anyway, it's a funny one, isn't it? So what can we do? I go back to my property. I'm going, all right, well, what am I going to do here? Okay. Right now, this property, I'm going to put $100 increase in my rent. Okay. I'm going to take it from 500 to 600. Okay. Now I'm very, 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 extremely, very confident that will happen. And let's go have a look. Right. And now your property is positive cash flow after tax, still a little bit pre-tax negative. And let's go back and have a look at maybe, and I know, listen, I've seen truckloads of rents go up quite a smidgen in the last year, and I don't think it's going to slow down. So let's see what happens when you bump it up to 700. And look at that, pre-tax cash flow. Pre-tax cash flow. So what does that mean? What does that mean to us? Tell me in the chat right now. Like for you and me. And also, ladies and gents, your ability to claim back more tax deductions out of your pay packet when the interest rates go up, you actually get to claim it back. So you get more, technically, like for real, you get more money back on your tax when your expenses rise. So it's quite good along the way. So my point of today's conversation, team, is I want you to get the cash flow calculator. I want you to grab your properties. I want you to analyze accurately and then go, all right, well, helps with servicing. Boom. Yep, absolutely. Gets the next deposit. What does it look like for us as investors? Don't sit there making up, boogie monsters in your head. Get the numbers on paper and all right, well, you know what I've got to do? I've got to get my rent up, $100. How does that happen? What do I do? What does that look like for me and my property, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. I just want to make sure we're sort of, like Andrew's saying there, not getting caught up in the media rhetoric. They take one small piece of information and, just get a bit carried away. And Joel's asking about Melbourne. Joel, absolutely. We've got, where is it here? Quick one here. Melbourne's vacancy now is the lowest it's been in a long time as well. So now we're down in Melbourne 1.5, and you can see how far that vacancy has gone down in just a small period of time. And I can tell you, Joel, you go down. If you guys haven't, let's have a look at it. Oh no, we've run out of time. You know what I'll do? Tomorrow we'll do some SQM research stuff. If you haven't already, jump on SQM research. In Melbourne, Joel, in many of the places we've, it does include the 3,000 postcode, Chris, and that's why it's it's no good. That 3,000 postcode is rubbish. It's all those, little one-bedroom pieces of rubbish in the middle of Melbourne that, you wouldn't put your dog in. You go a couple of kilometres out, you go 1 or 2 kilometres out of Melbourne and start looking at the vacancy rates around the city. Unbelievable. And crazy, unbelievable. It is so low, those vacancy rates. And we'll do it tomorrow because if you want to have a play around, there's SQM Research is a really good website that we use for for looking at data and information and stuff like that. Anyway, there you go. All right, folks, that's it. Wealth Coffee Chat done and dusted. Hopefully you guys are awesome and well. But there you go. Yeah, good, Alison. You know, every market has a period of time where it finds, you know, an acceptable tolerance to expense and income. So Melbourne it was the worst compressed city financially because of the lockdowns. So it's getting its mojo back on. And, you know, I reckon, you know, Melbourne's got the next 12 months is going to look good for it when it comes to, you know, rental increases and stuff like that. So anyway, there you go. All right, folks, that's it. We're done and dusted. You guys be awesome. Be well. Join me tomorrow. We'll hang out and talk all things property investing again on another Wealth Coffee Chat.